We're covering Enterprise Social today. Any organizations that is not using a solution such as Yammer is really missing the boat. Even if you've got a full installment and a ton of usage around Microsoft Teams, if you don't give a solution to your end users that are solved by Yammer, then you're really missing the boat. You don't have a complete solution in front of your end users within your company. And so let's explain a little bit more about that, if you will. So what you're seeing here is kind of a rendition of an explanation that Satya, our CEO, kicked off last year at Ignite. And so a lot of customers, as I mentioned, come to us and say, hey, Microsoft, tell us, you've got this toolbox full of a ton of tools, and all of them are great, but we really need to get a good handle on what to use when. And so the way we like to, Chris and I kind of came up with this approach, the way we like to set the stage for our customers is, look, typically you get hired at your company to come in and do something. You're producing something within your organization, right? And so that's really about the me, right? That's, hey, what tools do I use to get my job done every day? And usually that very quickly evolves into what we would consider this inner loop, right? And so the inner loop is, hey, I may have created a document, but now I have to collaborate with the rest of my team in HR to really put together this employee handbook. So that's that inner loop. I'm part of a group of people. We're working to get something done. We have a deliverable. We need some capabilities that really help make us efficient, find experts, all of those things. That's what we consider the inner loop, right? That tight-knit group of people that you're coming together every day to work with to get something accomplished. And studies have shown the number of those inner group team work activities exponentially has increased over the years, right? So having a solution that really maps to that is paramount in every organization. And that's really where Microsoft Teams was created to excel in those experiences. So today we're really focused on what we would consider the outer loop. So that outer loop is really the group of people, and here I have a little explanation, the group of people that you connect with openly across the organization. And there's tons of examples here that, again, you'll really miss out on if you don't have a solution like Yammer in your environment. So first and foremost, think of things like your senior leadership team wanting to change the culture or just update employees on kind of the state of the business. Have employee roundtables where they can collect questions from people. They can say, hey, I'm the CEO of Microsoft, I'm Satya Nadella. He literally has what's called the CEO Corner, where he goes in and explains, on a regular basis, hey, here's where I've traveled over the last month. Here's the customers I've visited with, the types of challenges they face, and here's the things that we are focused on helping them with from a challenging perspective. And so what's great about that is when you have a tool that is really orchestrated towards helping solve for this outer loop, it gives the people that have been in your organization a day all the way to 30 years a voice and a method and a mechanism for going and collaborating and communicating with everybody else in that environment. So Satya literally will go in and ask questions, and you'll see people all over the company jump in and say, hey, I have an expertise. I have some history with that problem that I've solved already in my previous employment. I have a big passion around this, and I've got a lot of studies that I've already conducted, and here's some data that I'd like to help support whatever method we use to solve that problem. And so that's the outer loop, right? There's a ton of other examples. The other one that is really valuable for every organization is we all typically would agree that we have multiple silos in every company that we encounter, even our own, right? So at Microsoft, we have an engineering team, we have sales, we have IT, right? So we have all the same components basically that every other company has. And historically, those have been in silos, and there's not a lot of opportunity for people to cross over and give feedback across each of those different silos. And so that's another amazing way that a solution like Yammer for that outer loop really plays a key role. So we're going to really dig in, and I want to give you an example of this outer loop, because it used to be I would tell every one of our customers how Microsoft uses Yammer, and we've got amazing case studies. If you go to yammer.com and sign in, or just look at some of the case studies that we have front and center there, you'll see tons of customers across tons of verticals that have said, here's how Yammer has helped us be more agile and be more competitive in our industry. So I want to give you an example, and I'm going to start by talking about this customer who came to us and to the account team and said, hey, we are an airline, and we have a number of people that we have a challenge with. And these people are basically crew members that hop on an airplane in the morning, and at night they get off the airplane, they stay in a hotel, they spend the day with 7 of their closest friends, depending on the size of the airplane. They don't really feel connected to the rest of the company. There's a lot of changes we're trying to make from a culture, changing our culture perspective. We need to push out information. We need to give them a voice so that they feel engaged with the rest of the company. They can give feedback. They can use their passion and expertise as a crew member to make our company better. We miss on all of that today. And because of that, those folks we have a high turnover rate in that role. And so Microsoft, what would you do to help us solve for this? So we got together as a team. We went back and said, listen, this is a typical scenario where you need to solve for that outer loop collaboration. And so as a result, they launched Yammer about 2 years ago. And what they quickly learned, and they came to us and said, wow, we can't believe what we see happening, is within a couple months, they had 11,000 users active in their Yammer network. So 11,000 people within their company were already leveraging that outer loop, having conversations, crowdsourcing ideas, taking surveys, right? Going and looking at announcements and being able to keep up with things that were important to them and follow different topics, all of those things. But they came to us with one use case that stood out to them. And they said, look, this is exactly the type of thing we were looking for. We have these crew members, again, they get on an airplane every day. And so a number of them, I should say, got a notification, right, through the grapevine that, hey, we're launching a new airplane, right? So they're launching a brand new airplane, and the people that were going to be the crew members for that airplane were notified. And so the crew members got together, a few of them, and they started talking about this new airplane. And so they did some digging, and they found that the galley design on this airplane was something circa 1980. And so you have these people, right, these crew members that have all of this knowledge and all of this expertise around what makes customers happier and more importantly, what makes them ticked off, if you will. And so they said, I can't believe we're investing in this brand new airplane, but nobody's taken the time to reach out to us with the expertise on what our customers are looking for and how we would be happier as employees of this airline if this airplane changed the galley based on years of experience that we have. And so a number of them got together. The first thing they did is they took to Yammer and they said, let's go find other people that are also assigned to this airline. And so they went out, they created a Yammer group for the crew members of this new airplane. And then they immediately started crowdsourcing. So one of the things they wanted to make sure of is that it wasn't just a handful of people on one crew, right, that were saying, oh, this design is flawed. And so they quickly were able to realize that every person that was a crew member assigned to this new airplane across the company worldwide had the same feedback. We can't believe it. We're disappointed. Nobody in engineering, pays attention to us. Nobody's able to collect the data that we have that shows how we should change this. So a few of them got together. Once they crowdsourced the whole idea, a few of them got together and they literally sketched out a new design for the galley. And so then they went to Yammer and they realized that engineering had also set up a Yammer group, right? So those are two different silos that never, ever, ever in the history of this company had a good way of collaborating with each other. So once the crew members found that there was an engineering team that had stood up this Yammer group, they immediately jumped in and said, hey, we've got all this data, not just one person's opinion, but they said, hey, you should really come over to our silo, our Yammer group, and check out all of the feedback that we have and the crowdsourcing we've done. Like, we have a huge opportunity to launch this plane much better than we're planning to do today. And so one of the this customer came to us and said, listen, within a few weeks, these people had all connected with each other. They had crowdsourced so that, there's very minimal risk involved. This wasn't just one, Lone Ranger out there saying, oh, this is going to be horrible. This was the entire field crew base that was assigned to this new airplane saying, we cannot believe you're going to launch it this way. And so as a result, what's wonderful is the engineering team was able to take all of that data, all of the crowdsourcing, all of the feedback that they were able to see from Yammer, and they changed all of the things that the crew members said, hey, we should do this. Not only will it make our customers happier, but it will make us crew members happier. And at the end of the day, those crew members that started that whole initiative, reached out through Yammer to connect the silos and crowdsource with their peers, they became heroes in the organization. Now, remember, one of the problems they had was high turnover. People typically will say high turnover is a result of not feeling like they're valued, right? Not feeling like they're empowered or have the ability to change things. Yammer is amazing at helping facilitate all of those things. So we're going to go in and take a look at Yammer. We're going to start with Chris, and Chris is going to cover some basic Enterprise Social Yammer capabilities. Then we're going to come back to me, and I'm going to show you some things that may surprise you with how people can work with their inner loop and their outer loop at the same time without bouncing around from tool to tool. And also, I'm going to show you the phone experience, a mobile experience. So, Chris, over to you, buddy.
Great, thanks, Brent. Appreciate that introduction. So I'm going to walk you through, again, the web-based experience of Yammer and what that looks like and some typical end-user interactions, and so you get a better feel for how this tool really applies to an organization and what the usage experience is like. From my regular login to Office 365, I went to portal.office.com or www.office.com, and I signed in with my corporate credentials. You'll see I'm logged in here as Grady Archie. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into Yammer. The home screen for Office 365 surfaces to me all the apps that I'm actively using, kind of automatically keeps me up to connected with the experiences that I'm used to using. And so I can, from here, just jump right into Yammer, and you'll see sort of what the web-based experience looks like. We start off by default in a discovery pane here where I can see all the conversations that should be useful to me based on the groups that I'm a member of and the content that I'm following, and we'll drill into that a little bit. And you'll see that a Yammer network, if you will, which is sort of what we think the biggest bucket is for Yammer, it's broken up into different groups, right? So organizations can create that right set of structure. So whether it's the crew that Brent mentioned, a group specifically for them, or whether it's engineering or what have you, organizations can and people within the organizations can create the right sets of groups that they want to provide that right set of conversations, right? And those things could be related to maybe a region or in either a country or a physical location, or maybe they're tied to a topic, and those topics could be work related, or maybe they're social, right? So maybe they're those ways that allow people to come together in ways that they wouldn't normally, right? So if you think about historically, like the company softball team, where you've got people from IT and legal and sales kind of all coming together around a shared interest of softball, they can get together and create connections that they might not necessarily do in the workplace, right? So groups like, say, quadcopter enthusiasts allow people to have a place to come together to share like ideas in a maybe slightly business-related scenario, and allow people to build those connections and break down those silos in the organizations. So as this organization, Contoso, has rolled out Yammer, one of the things that we've suggested is to take a look at groups that are already there before you go ahead and create one. And we have a mechanism here for discovering groups that are existed. And as it happens, we're actually making some suggestions, right? Groups that we're recommending to you based on your interactions with others and your place in the organization, right? So people that I work with, like Lee or Megan, are in these groups, and it's going to make suggestions to me that, hey, this might be a group that's useful for you to join. And I can simply click on join and jump into a group like this production line group. But maybe, for example, as I look through the list of all groups, there's an experience that I don't see. I can see all of the groups that are here. Maybe what I want to do is to create a new group, to create that new conversation opportunity for people to be able to come together across the organization. So I can click on create group, and you'll see a couple of things. First of all, groups can be internal only, or groups can contain both internal people or external group users as well too. So if you think about that scenario where a working unit or a working team of folks might want to collaborate with somebody outside the organization, a partner or a vendor, you can create external groups. I can give my group a name. In this case, I'm going to create a group called Yammer 101. And I can choose to add group members right from here. Like maybe, for example, I want to add my good buddy Irvin as a member of this group. And then I can choose what level of access I want for this group. I can make groups public, right? So anybody in the company can see the content and join the group and participate in the conversations. Or I could choose to make the group private, right, where we're going to have a place where we can have a conversation, but I want to be selective about who can see this information. So think about that group within the organization that is working on the secret sauce, the next thing that's coming. They want to have a place where they can be social and share ideas, but they're going to be selective about who within the organization joins that conversation. So they can create a group that's private, and actually they can make a group so private that they choose not to even list it in the organization or in the directory so people can find it. You've got to be invited to the group explicitly to see it. So we can create the right amount of visibility for the conversations that exist out there. I want to create a group that allows people to talk about Yammer or to come in and have sort of a ramp up experience with Yammer. So I'm going to make that group public. I want to really encourage participation with people across that group. So I'm going to go ahead and just create it. And apparently there was an error. Oh, and I know why. Something I did. If I look on the left-hand side here, you'll see the list of all the groups that I'm a member of. And you can choose to join groups if the group is something that's of interest to you or something you feel like it's a topic that you're going to connect with or you can engage with a little more frequently, right? So, for example, the Teams 101 group here, I have a lot of interest in Teams, and so I want to be able to contribute or maybe provide some expertise around what is happening within Teams, right? Or maybe I want to figure out where we should be focusing our efforts within Teams. I see this nice threaded conversation within the middle here that's happening across the platform, and including some engagement here from my good demo buddy Irvin, who is letting me know, that he agrees with my sentiment on what's happening within Teams and a launch date. I can choose to interact with him and leverage, familiar social gestures such as a like, or I can reply back to Irvin as well too, and say, we need to help IT get this deployed, right? So it's a way for the two of us to come together across the organization and have a conversation and engage around topics, that sort of a thing. You'll also see that we are providing you notifications within the service as well too. Here, fantastically, you can see real time. I'm seeing notifications here in the Leadership Connection group. There was a nice little badge that showed up that had a picture of Irvin's face, and now I see that there's an article that I have yet to consume there, right, in Leadership Connection. So it helps me stay in touch with what's happening across my groups, and it's doing so real time. We're very thoughtful about social networking as it relates to an enterprise, right? A lot of social networks are built to be a distraction, right? To keep you engaged there because they want you to be there and to surface other content that's not necessarily business related. When we work on Yammer within Microsoft, we're very thoughtful about helping to ensure that you're engaged with the content and staying up to date, and to the point where when I go into a group, we default to this view called New Conversations. So I'm taken to the things that are net new for me. I haven't been here yet, but I can come in here and quickly and see that, hey, Irvin just asked, he mentioned me about something. You have some great ideas. I should share them with Patty. So he looped in both myself and Patty into this conversation. I can like that. And now I know that I'm all caught up in this particular group. If I wanted to go see all the rest of the conversations in the group that are happening, then I can certainly do that. But again, we're very thoughtful about making sure that this is an experience focusing on getting people together across the organization, but also keeping them focused on the task at hand and staying caught up on the social experiences. One thing that I did want to mention about groups and group membership is you can go through and build groups as a framework and allow people to join them based on, the suggestions for groups that you might want to attend or, seeing what other people are members of, that sort of a thing. Or you can, manually add people to groups. One other option that a lot of organizations are leveraging are building your Yammer groups based on attributes of the people, right? So if you have a new hire that's coming in, right? Like say, Brent talked about turnover. If we have somebody coming in that's new to the organization and that they have a location and they have a title, you can build your group membership based on some of those attributes. So you could have a Atlanta users group or Atlanta employees group, and where the membership is everybody whose location is Atlanta, or your role is this, you're a member of this group. group. So if somebody joins a company net new, they're seeded already with the right sets of communities that they might want to start engaging in and can be productive and meet the people that they're going to be working with or should be connecting with across the organization. If I go into the HR group where I still see some activity here, again, I can see a question here from Irvin. He says, "Hey, Grady, have you seen any information about how to drive adoption of Yammer? We HR are getting a lot of questions," right? So I don't necessarily work in HR, but I do have an answer to this question. I'm going to go ahead and reply to him and say, "Yes, Irvin, take a look at this." And so messages in Yammer can include a lot of different types of content. So in this particular case, I have a link to a website that I can post right in here, and we can go ahead and bring in a link to some conversation. This should help, right? And I can go ahead and post this, but I could also include other types of information. I could include, a GIF, let's say, to provide a very engaging conversation with some sentiment, or I can choose to post some files that are hosted out on SharePoint, or et cetera. I can even just upload a file from my computer, something I've been working on separately, and I can go ahead and post this. And this then again provides that value of being able to crowdsource information, right? I don't necessarily work in HR, but Irvin, based on conversations that we've had, knows that I might have some information here. And again, you can see again real-time interaction. I can see that there's new content. I can see that there's that Irvin's replying right now. So this is a very active, living, breathing environment here that allows me to see what's happening across the platform. I click on this new message, and I can see that there's additional feedback from Irvin real time right here. And Irvin could be in the same office as me. Irvin could be on the other side of the world, and we can all come together across the organization and have these, engaging conversations in that way. If I go over to my quadcopter enthusiasts group, you can see that there's a lot of different media types that we support, right? So whether it's an image file here, I can see that Megan is having a lot of fun using this new quadcopter. I can go ahead and like that. Here, Lee has gone through and posted a video, and it's fantastic. The video plays right here in context. I don't have to go someplace else. I can see this content right here from within the platform and within the conversation. Here's another example of a link preview, all right here within the page. Maybe what I want to do is ask or a question of the quadcopter enthusiast community. And so I could go through and share something with that group and ask a question, but maybe I want to do something more structured. I want to ask a question. I could say, what should we look for in a quadcopter, right? And I could put in maybe some suggested answers, right? Like, so good camera. I could say mobile app. And I could say, colors, right? Whatever it is. And I can go through and create this quick little poll that I can post out that then is available for everybody to respond, right? So people can see this poll. They can go ahead and share their opinion. And this could be what should we do for this company, message moving forward? Where should we focus our time in helping our customers, whatever those things are. And then as people go through and vote, like say, hey, I think colors are pretty popular. I can then go and see real time some results that show me what people think is the thing that we should focus on, or the thing that we should do, right? So a great way to stay plugged in and engage for within the platform here. If I also want to encourage social behavior, one way to do that is to leverage the praise capability. So if I go into the leadership connection group, one of the things that we talk with customers that it really helps drive adoption of Yammer and engagement is when folks that are in senior leadership positions are engaging and recognizing and acknowledging the voice of others that are doing things within the organization to help broaden the engagement. So maybe as a senior leader within the organization, I see that Irvin's been doing some great things in here, and I can come in and say, hey, I want to praise Irvin. I want to basically pick some badging here. Maybe I think he had a great idea, and I can say, hey, thanks for all of your hard work. And so I can go through and post this information here. And praise is a great way to encourage positive interaction within the social network, that sort of a thing. It's really a great way to plug in there. We also have an additional capability for engaging with a group. Say if I go into the new hires group, for example, one of the things that you can also do is you can leverage an announcement. So announcements are messages that you really want to make sure everybody within your organization or your group sees, right? So maybe if this is something product oriented or what have you, it's a way for you to ensure that everybody gets that notification about the new product that's coming. So I could come in, I could say new hire orientation coming up next week, right? And I will go ahead and correct that. And so I can now, please join us. Whatever the message is, there's formatting. I can have links to information, bullets, what have you. Again, layering in social sentiment, that sort of a thing. And so this, as an announcement, it's treated a little bit different. You see there's some notifications or badging, lets people know that, hey, this is a little bit more important. And it would ultimately land in someone's Yammer inbox. Right, so we want to make sure that there is a place for you to see all of the things that are either new for you or new actions or activities or posts. And so I can see particular items landing in my inbox that might be useful or interesting to me, right? So even, just a few seconds ago, I praised Irvin, and he went through and provided this fantastic Simpsons Jiffy to let me know that he's happy about this engagement, that sort of thing. So the inbox lets me keep track of things that are happening in messages where I'm at mentioned or announcements or those sorts of things. We also have this notification bell, which lets me see, sort of the kinds of activities that will show up that, maybe I don't necessarily want to, see as a formal inbox message, but it just lets me get a feel for what's happening across my organization, right? Somebody added me to a team, or I've been added to a group, where there's particular activities that are happening across the function. The notification bell just lets me see what's happening in those areas across the group. If I go back to the home page here for Yammer, let's talk a little bit about the right-hand side here. We're going to make some suggestions to help your coworkers engage across the platform. We also allow companies to help people or help them provide guidance for their employees on, what are we looking to do with Yammer? Like, what does Enterprise Social mean for our organization? And you can create things like an acceptable use policy. It's a way for people to understand what are some of the rules of the road from an engagement perspective. And you can provide the right sets of, governance and guidance on, not posting confidential information to the main feed, and that everything that's happening in here stays in Yammer. It's not to be taken outside the public networks, and to be respectful to others. Just general guidance as far as engagements. And in fact, administrators can also make that required, right? They can make it so that people have to accept that, to acknowledge that they're opting in. The platform is making suggestions for connecting with other people, right? So here, based on what groups I'm interacting with, what people I'm interacting with, it's suggesting other people for me to follow in the organization. And so when I join a group, I'm following the group, and that influences what's in my discovery feed. But I can also follow specific conversations. I can follow people. I can even follow topics or hashtags that we also support within the conversations. So the suggestion helps me follow or engage with the right kinds of people. I can follow Joanna, and when she posts something in here, it will flow into my discovery feed and help me get to the right content that's interesting to me, because she's a prominent voice within our organization. I've discovered her within other groups or conversations, and it helps me connect with her in that way. We're also suggesting groups for me to join, right? So we're, again, providing ways for you to help discover content in a way that makes sense and is useful, that sort of a thing. A couple more things here before I turn it back over to Brent. If I go back into my HR group, you'll see that we provide, on the right-hand side, you have visibility into who the members are of your group, and I can go through and I can specify which of those are regular members here, or which of those are administrators. It's a good policy to set up multiple admins of groups so they can go through and manage group membership and triage questions, that sort of a thing. There's an information panel that lets people know what the group is about. We're also providing usage information or insight information. So I can see over the last period, who's been active in this group, how many people are posting messages, are they members or non-members of the group, what's the number of posted messages or read messages, that sort of a thing, just to help me get a feel for, as the owner of a group, what's the uptake like of the group, and how much activity there is. So it's a good way to stay in touch with what's happening in this particular group. I can also choose to provide integrations into Yammer. So in this particular case, maybe what I want to do from an HR standpoint is I want to tie in some other actions that are happening in some other system with the conversation stream in HR. So I could go through and pull in activities that are happening, say out in Bing News. I want to know anytime the company is mentioned out on Bing News, I can simply add an app that allows me to specify some parameters to say, hey, every time the word Contoso is mentioned in Bing News, I want to see that end up as a conversation element here within the HR group. So apps are a way for you to bridge or tie together services and actions that are happening outside of Yammer into the conversation stream and really enrich this. Again, this is about bridging and allow people to come together across the organization, but it's with a high focus on productivity and making sure people are engaged in that way. If I wanted to search for content, I could certainly issue a search here, and I can search a couple of different ways. I can come in here and search for teams, let's say, and I'm already getting some search suggestions for groups that have teams in the description some way, or I can search across all results and I can see either conversations or groups that contain that term. I could also go back to a particular group, and so if there was throughout the HR group, I can search specifically within the group as well too. So if I don't need to search all of Yammer and I want to search just within a particular group for where somebody may have asked and they already answered a conversation, I can scope the search in this way. When I create a Yammer group now, one of the things that's fantastic about that is it's the files area can also be SharePoint. So much as I showed how to add a conversation here, I could also say at Irvin, Irvin, if I can spell his name right, we should review the video upload policy, right? We're going to be looking to deploy this new video technology in Office 365 called Stream. We want to go ahead and review this policy. And in fact, I can go through here and provide a file on SharePoint, right? This nice video upload policy document. And then, basically loop Irvin into this conversation about this particular policy document. And when I post this here, now there's a link to this file right here. So I can go ahead and open this file, and we could actually both go in and open up this file and co-author and collaborate and work on this real time. So it's a great way to allow people to collaborate again around the social mechanism that is Yammer. We can also bring these Yammer conversations to a lot of different areas within Office 365. We could simply leverage the ability to embed a Yammer group into a web portal, SharePoint or otherwise. So if I want to bring my social experience elsewhere, I can certainly do that very easily. We actually make it very easy to do right within SharePoint as well. So if I come into my HR group for SharePoint, here we have our portal that our HR group is using to share information. But maybe while I'm in the portal, I want to see the Yammer activity front and center on the home page of my portal. I can come in here and click Edit very simply and easily. I can come down to this page editing experience in SharePoint now, and I could say, hey, what I'd like to do is to be able to add Yammer. I simply hover and click on the plus because I want to add something new. I can do a search and find Yammer, and very quickly and easily it's going to go through and pull in the conversations that are happening here. And you can see this is happening real time, right? Here's that post that I just put in there about the video upload policy, and now I can see our Yammer conversations right here in context with the rest of what's happening in the group. So very simple and easy to do in that way. A lot of different ways to link back that content. So with that, there could be tons of other things to show here, but I want to pivot back to Brent so he's got plenty of time to show off some other advanced scenarios as well as the mobile experience. So with that, Brent, I will turn it back over to you.
Wonderful demo. Thanks for walking us through all of those great capabilities. So the first thing we're going to talk about is this idea of mobile, right? So if you're like most of us, you will find yourself knee deep in the grocery store, right behind maybe 5 or 6 people, and you're like, hey, usually I go and that's where I do my Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter, right? I just check in on the favorite topics that I'm interested in my consumer lives. Well, that is increasingly growing into Enterprise Social. And so what I want to do is kind of start with, how does that play out when someone's mobile? Because let's face it, we want people to be able to be productive with their inner, their outer loop, any aspect of your organizational productivity, no matter what device they have in their pocket, under their arm, in a bag somewhere, or under a desk. And so we're going to show you the mobile experience here. The first thing I want to show you is if I slide down here, you'll see that I have in my notifications, now I'm on an Android phone, and you'll see that Grady Archie has posted an announcement. So really great, think of your consumer lives where you get to keep up with, you'll see a couple things that I've dismissed there, like Slick Deals has notifications. So we're pushing a lot of notifications right here from Yammer, which gives you some insight into how integrated Yammer is with your mobile experience. And so if I wanted to, I can see Grady posted an announcement in Yammer. If I click on that, it's going to take me directly into the native Yammer app on my Android. We provide this Yammer app for iOS, Android. We have iPhone, iPad, Android tablet, Android phones, web browsers, Mac browser, Safari experiences. So just know that you can experience Yammer no matter where you are or whatever device you're on. And so here's where, I just clicked on a notification and I'm brought right to this announcement, which is important, right? So think of that, an announcement sends a notification. Now this could be, hey, our CEO is going to be on TV tonight. Make sure you spread the word to your family and friends, whatever. So I'll come in and I'll like that. I could also, click on a reply and I can go in and say, hey, I need to mention somebody. So I'll say, hey, Diego, right? So I'll pull up Diego here and I'll say, that's perfect. And I'll say, make sure you see this and let's discuss. Right, so I'll go ahead and hit go on that. And so basically right here, you can see I have immediate, feedback on, hey, I've CC'd Diego. So now he's going to get a notification saying, hey, Irvin has mentioned you based on this announcement that was just, he was notified of. So now here is kind of the landing page, if you will, for Yammer. So I have at the bottom, you'll see all of the different icons. So this is all of the groups that I'm active in, right? If I come over, this is my feed. I can see in the feed where each of these is coming from. So these are all different groups that I am a member of and that I follow. And so I get to stay up to speed on all of those things, right? I'll go down. Here's something that I submitted to the quadcopter enthusiast from my phone. Right. And so you'll see that great experience there. So I had the quadcopter in front of me, taking pictures, selfies, if you will, from the quadcopter. I can go back and I can jump into that quadcopter enthusiast, which is super nice. And notice that I went in and I already voted on this poll. So this is just showing you the investment we've made in mobile from a Yammer perspective, all the things that you want people to be able to participate in. I'm not limited, so to speak, on my phone. So I can go in and say, hey, I voted that a good camera is the most important thing. So I'm going to go in and change my vote, though, and I'm going to say I want a mobile app, actually. I think I'm agreeing with, one of my colleagues across the hall. I can go ahead and like this. So people that are following me, I might entice them to go in and look at this in the quadcopter group as well. I can also go in and let's say that I remember somebody had asked a question about the employee handbook and maybe I have the answer. I just need to go see what the answer is. I can go in and search and I can search for handbook. And when I hit submit, I can come over and say search everything in the organization. And voila, an amazing search experience right here. I can search for groups, people. I can search my inbox, conversations. So I'm just trying to give you a run through of how productive you can be on your mobile device. And again, if I wanted to create a new post and put it in, let's just say HR, I can go in here and I'll say, let's put this in the HR group, and I can say, let's go ahead and say that's fine, and I'll go in and say, let's submit another picture of a Wobo wallet here, and so I'll go ahead and take that, and I'll say, got my new wallet, I'll say Wobo today. Right, so I'm posting this in the HR group, and as soon as I click on send, that's as easy. So we have a lot of folks that are out in the in different industries. It's very popular for like retail customers to have really fun contests between different stores. Hey, how are you being the most creative and engaging our customers with the end caps, perhaps in your retail setting? You know, how did you set up the holiday season, you know, experience when you walk into our store? You know, so there's a lot of fun that people are having, which again, people trivialize, but it's actually a key part of retaining people, having people engaged, making them feel like they're empowered to make decisions, right? And then engaging them and putting them into an environment where tons of leadership folks can come in and see the good work that everybody is doing. Then you combine that with things like kudos and all those things. It's just amazing. Also, if I really quickly just want to come in and say, hey, what's going on in my network? I can look and I see alerts and say, hey, Grady Archie liked my message in the new hire group. So he's done that twice, right? So he's in there now, and Chris is playing the role of Grady. And so some amazing things. So we have surveys, we can go in and respond. We have a great search experience. We get all of our alerts. Again, I can post, I can mention people, all of those things on a mobile experience, which is fantastic. Now, I'm going to show you another aspect of Yammer that I think will surprise a number of you. So, you know, our phone experience is amazing, right? And again, that does allow you to increase your reach and your engagement within your outer loop that we talked about on your, you know, the device you have with you at all times. But here's another, this is where it kind of all comes together. So a lot of people come to us and say, hey, Yammer is fantastic, but we find, you know, Microsoft's touting this thing called Microsoft Teams as the hub for teamwork. And so Brent, talk to me about how Teams and Yammer, you know, come together. How do we talk to our users about these two? And so one of the things that I want to show you is we've done an amazing job of pulling these two experiences together. So just to recap, Microsoft Teams is really your best bet for that inner loop connectivity, right? And communication and collaboration. So the group of people coming together, like think of human resources as an example. So I'm part of the human resources team. And so I work with these people day in and day out. So this is my inner loop, human resources. So if I go and click on human resources, you'll see that I'll go look at the general tab. Now I'm in Microsoft Teams here, okay? So you'll see a couple things that have happened. Number one, when it comes to Yammer, you'll notice these little Yammer icons in the general channel of my human resources team in Microsoft Teams. So all I did is I went in and said, look, I don't want to bounce around from the browser or my phone back to Teams. I live in Teams now, right? I communicate and collaborate with everyone within Teams. I live in Teams. I've got all the things in Office 365 from Power BI to all of my documents that I'm collaborating with people on. I've got persistent conversations with people. All of those things. I've got dashboards coming into Microsoft Teams. So why would I want to have to bounce out to go to Yammer to engage with my outer loop? So you can imagine if I'm part of the human resources inner loop, we certainly want to interact with our constituents out there, all the employees that we are servicing, right? And so what better way to do that than to set up that human resources group in Yammer? And so one of the things that I've done is I've come into the human resources team and I said, hey, I want to create a connector. And so if I come in here to general and I say go to connectors, you'll see that I've set up a connector for Yammer. And let it resolve here. So you'll see that I have already configured a connector for Yammer. And so what that connector does, it says, hey, anytime someone posts a question in Yammer, I want to pull that into our HR general channel within Teams. And so it just keeps me updated on the types of things that our employees are asking of HR. And maybe we don't even have to get engaged. Maybe we just stand back and watch other employees answer questions that we know are top of mind for, their peers. And so one of the things I could do here, you'll see Grady came in and said, hey, Irvin, we should view the video upload. So I might want to delegate this to someone. So I'll come in here and say, hey, at Diego, not S, sorry, at Diego, there you go. Sorry, if I could type today. At Diego, can you follow up with Grady? So if you think of what I'm doing here, I'm basically working with my inner loop, or Diego is in part of my inner loop, and I'm saying, listen, we've got somebody in our outer loop engaging HR, asking a question. And so now you might think, well, that was kind of cool because we're being exposed to these conversations and I didn't have to go anywhere. I'm just in Teams. I'm doing all my work within Teams. So if Diego comes along and he's like, hey, I need to go and interact with this post from Grady into the HR group, guess what? I can also use what we call a custom tab within Teams, right? To go in, Diego can come in and click on, hey, let me go look at my outer loop. And Teams is great at letting you expand this, so it looks like you have the full Yammer experience right here within. Let me remove this conversation here. There we go. So notice I haven't left Teams. All I did is I clicked on that Yammer tab in the ribbon up at the top, and I said, hey, let me go immediately to the HR group. So it defaults to the HR group within Yammer, and I can go in and answer that question of Grady, right? And so I can come down here and I can say, looks great. Thanks, right? And I can post that. I can also go in here, and if I want, I can vote on change my vote, and I'll say, hey, let's agree with Chris because I know he picked colors. And so I'm doing all this from the Teams experience. I'm just integrated seamlessly now with Yammer. Notice I didn't get a prompt to log in. You'll probably you may or may not get prompted once to sign in. From then on out, you won't get any prompts when you're going back and forth from these other Office 365 experiences. And so one of the things that's very common within our customers is they'll go to Teams and they'll set up their own personal hub, right? And so one of the things that I love, just to kind of reiterate the fact that you never have to leave Teams, is I can go in and I can check email, right? And so this is in Microsoft Teams, and I'll go in and now I have the whole OWA experience here. I get to see all of my alerts from Yammer coming in. I can reply. I can forward those things. All of those experiences now are native to me right here within the Teams environment. So if I go back and I collapse that down, again, sometimes I just want to go check in on Yammer, not necessarily the HR group. So I have another tab here under my own personal hub, right, that says, oh, let me just go look at Yammer. And so when I click on Yammer there, it's just going to take me to my all company feed, right? Where again, I can go in and I can look at all the new conversations that have happened. And I can go, and again, this conversation tab pops up. So as I'm looking at Yammer, I can have all these rich conversations over here on the right-hand side. I can get rid of that by just clicking the little conversation button there. But again, the full Yammer experience right here within Microsoft Teams. So the way that we accomplish this is our Microsoft Teams engineering folks worked with our Yammer team and came up with this integration like connectors and with things like these custom tabs. So hopefully that kind of puts it all into perspective for you as kind of that one hub for teamwork being Microsoft Teams, but leveraging the immense value that you get with people interacting with Yammer from their phones, from the browser, and others from right there within Teams as well. So there's really this full gamut of collaboration and communication experiences confined just to that Microsoft Teams pane of glass. Yeah, so thanks for joining. We really appreciate the investment of time, and we'll see you next week, Tuesday at 10 a.m. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.